Level 0. Before we enter the world of destruction, chaos, and relentless wind speeds, we start with the gentlest end of the spectrum. Storms so mild, they're more of a background soundtrack than a threat. At level 0, we're talking about light showers, soft breezes, and the occasional distant rumble of thunder. These are the kinds of storms that might have you cracking a window to let in the smell of rain, or pouring a cup of tea to enjoy the sound of raindrops tapping against the glass. The wind might only rustle the leaves, sending small ripples across puddles, while clouds drift lazily overhead. Scientifically, these events occur when atmospheric instability is minimal. Warm, moist air rises gently, meeting cooler air aloft, but not with enough energy to create violent updrafts or severe weather. Rainfall rates are light to moderate, and lightning, if it even appears, strikes infrequently and far from populated areas. In many regions, these mild tempests are welcome. They replenish soil moisture, cool down summer heat, and wash dust from the air. Farmers depend on them, and city dwellers often see them as a break from relentless sunshine. But beneath this peaceful exterior is the first hint of nature's more powerful machinery. The same processes that form a level 0 storm, moisture, lift, and unstable air, are the seeds of the monsters we'll face later. The difference lies only in scale and intensity. Level 0 may feel harmless, even comforting, but as we climb the ladder, each step adds more energy, more force, and far greater consequences. In the first escalation, it's just one atmospheric shift away. Level 1. At level 1, the atmosphere begins to stir with a little more ambition. The clouds are darker now, thicker, heavier, and stacking upward into towering formations. You start to feel the shift in the air, that subtle drop in temperature, and maybe even catch the metallic tang that hints lightning is near. A level 1 storm is your standard thunderstorm, but standard doesn't mean boring. Winds can pick up to 30 or 40 miles per hour, enough to make tree branches sway and street signs rattle. Rain comes down in bursts, sometimes steady, sometimes in quick, heavy sheets, and puddles start to collect faster than they can drain. The main difference from level 0? Instability. Warm, moist air is rising more rapidly now, slamming into cooler air aloft. This creates strong updrafts that feed the clouds, and in return, the clouds feed back with energy, lightning flickers, thunder rolls across the horizon, and the storm begins to assert itself. While most level 1 storms remain relatively tame, they still carry hazards. A single lightning strike can cause a power outage, start a fire, or send someone rushing for cover. Brief gusts can topple lightweight outdoor furniture, and the downpour can make roads slick and dangerous. And yet for many, these storms are mesmerizing. Watching the sky light up, counting the seconds between flash and rumble, it's nature's way of putting on a show. But this show is only a warm-up act. Because when the same conditions are amplified, when winds rise, updrafts intensify, and the storm begins to rotate, we leave level 1 behind. And what comes next can turn beautiful weather drama into something far more dangerous. Level 2. Level 2 is where storms start to take on a mind of their own. Instead of a passing burst of wind and rain, you're now dealing with a supercell, a rare and powerful type of thunderstorm that can sustain itself for hours and produce some of the most extreme weather on Earth. What sets a supercell apart is rotation. Inside the towering thundercloud, powerful updrafts twist into a rotating column called a mesocyclone. This spin doesn't just happen by accident, it's the result of strong wind shear, where winds at different altitudes blow at different speeds or directions. The result is a storm that behaves more like a living engine, constantly feeding itself with warm, moist air and spitting out bursts of rain, hail, and lightning. At ground level, the signs are impossible to miss. The sky can turn an eerie greenish hue, a warning that hail, sometimes golf ball-sized or larger, may be on the way. Lightning cracks almost non-stop, and the thunder feels closer, sharper. Sheets of rain can suddenly switch to blinding hail, then back again, while winds whip violently in unpredictable gusts. Supercells are notorious for producing severe hazards, damaging hail, intense downpours, and, most famously, tornadoes. Not every supercell spawns one, but almost every violent tornado in history has come from a storm like this. This is no longer a casual weather event you can watch from the porch. Level 2 storms demand attention, and in many regions, they trigger weather alerts and emergency broadcasts, and yet, even supercells aren't the peak of storm fury. Because when these systems band together and unleash wind across hundreds of miles, they transform into something even more relentless. Level 3. At level 3, the danger stops being a single storm and becomes a wall of storms. Fast, organized, and unforgiving. This is where squall lines and derechos take over. A squall line is a long chain of thunderstorms, sometimes stretching for hundreds of miles, moving in unison like an advancing army. They bring powerful straight-line winds, heavy rain, and constant lightning. But when a squall line intensifies into a derecho, the situation escalates dramatically. Derechos are like inland hurricanes, massive windstorms that can cover multiple states with gusts exceeding 80 or even 100 miles per hour. Unlike tornadoes, which damage small areas, derechos flatten everything in their path over a huge swath of land. Trees are snapped like matchsticks, power lines crumple, and entire towns can be left in the dark for days. The damage footprint can be hundreds of miles wide, with winds lasting not just seconds, but hours. If you've ever seen the sky turn a sickly, bruised gray and felt a sudden blast of wind out of nowhere, you've experienced the first breath of one. The sound is haunting, a constant roar, like a freight train that refuses to pass. Rain falls sideways, stinging like needles, and visibility drops to just a few feet. Derechos aren't as famous as tornadoes or hurricanes. They've caused billions in damage and taken lives without the same public awareness. And that's what makes them so dangerous. People often underestimate them until it's too late. But even these massive windstorms pale in comparison to the storms that draw their power from the sea, growing over warm ocean waters until they become true monsters. Level 4. At level 4, storms no longer just tear across the land, they're born over the ocean, gathering strength from the warm waters beneath them. This is the tropical storm stage, the first real form of what could eventually become a hurricane. Tropical storms form when clusters of thunderstorms organize around a low-pressure center. As they spin, they draw up vast amounts of moisture, releasing it in relentless bands of rain. Winds can range from 39 to 73 miles per hour, enough to rip branches from trees, damage roofs, and send unsecured objects tumbling down streets. But it's not just the wind you need to fear, it's the water. Tropical storms can trigger storm surges, pushing walls of seawater onto the coast. A few feet of surge may not sound like much, but when it comes in fast and floods neighborhoods, roads, and power stations, it can paralyze entire communities. The approach of a tropical storm is unsettling. Skies darken for hours before the first rain arrives. The ocean grows restless, waves growing higher and more aggressive. As the outer rain bands hit, you might get a taste of the storm's fury long before its center arrives. Blinding downpours, gusty winds, and sudden lulls that feel almost eerie. Tropical storms may not get the headlines that hurricanes do, but they've caused catastrophic flooding, triggered landslides, and destroyed infrastructure. They are a reminder that once a system crosses the line from storm to tropical storm, the risk level jumps significantly. And if the winds keep strengthening, the pressure keeps dropping and the storm's rotation tightens. The transition to level 5 marks the beginning of true cyclonic terror. Level 5 is where a storm graduates from dangerous to destructive. A Category 1 hurricane may be the lowest on the Saffir-Simpson scale, but don't let the ranking fool you. These storms can cause chaos. Sustained winds between 74 and 95 miles per hour are strong enough to tear shingles from roofs, topple trees, and knock out power grids for days. Flying debris becomes a serious hazard, turning everyday objects into high-speed projectiles. In coastal areas, the storm surge can rise 4 to 5 feet above normal tides, enough to flood streets, damage homes, and cut off evacuation routes. The arrival of a Category 1 hurricane is a sensory overload. The wind howls nonstop, a low, unrelenting roar that drowns out conversation. Rain doesn't fall, it's hurled sideways, pelting windows and soaking everything in its path. Power flickers and then dies, plunging neighborhoods into darkness as the storm's eye edges closer. Even after the center passes, danger lingers. Floodwaters can hide downed power lines, streets become impassable, and emergency services may be overwhelmed. Category 1 storms have a deceptive reputation. Some people see them as manageable, but history has proven otherwise. Storms like Hurricane Isaac in 2012 and Hurricane Florence in 2018 caused billions in damage, largely due to flooding and prolonged power outages. And if a storm this size can wreak such havoc, imagine what happens when the winds climb past 100 miles per hour. The surge swallows entire coastlines, and the storm's energy multiplies into something far more fearsome. Level 6. At Level 6, we've crossed into major hurricane territory. A Category 3 storm is where destruction stops being partial and starts becoming widespread. Sustained winds of 111 to 129 miles per hour can shred roofs, collapse walls, and uproot massive trees like they were nothing more than weeds. This is also where storm surge becomes truly lethal, rising 9 to 12 feet in coastal zones, enough to turn streets into rivers and sweep away cars, homes, and anything in its path. Even buildings on higher ground can suffer damage from flooding and wind-driven rain that forces its way through cracks and shattered windows. The atmosphere inside a Category 3 hurricane feels alien. The wind's roar is deafening, mixed with the deep thuds of falling trees and the screech of bending metal. Rain pounds with relentless force, blurring the world outside into a gray haze. If the eye passes overhead, there's an eerie, almost unnatural calm, a deceptive break before the second half of the storm slams in with equal fury. After a Category 3, the landscape can look unrecognizable. Whole neighborhoods may be leveled, power can be out for weeks, and clean water becomes scarce. In many cases, roads vanish under floodwater, cutting survivors off from help. Storms like Hurricane Katrina in 2005 began their devastation at this level before climbing higher, showing that a Category 3 is already a worst-case scenario for many communities. And yet, there are still two more categories above this, storms that push the very limits of what nature can unleash on land. Level 7. Level 7 is the top of the official hurricane scale, the point where storms are as powerful as meteorologists can currently measure. Sustained winds exceed 157 miles per hour, turning debris into deadly shrapnel and ripping apart even well-built homes. Entire roofs are torn away, concrete walls crack, and massive steel structures bend or collapse under the relentless force. Storm surge at this level can tower more than 18 feet above normal tides. It's enough to swallow whole neighborhoods, obliterate coastal towns, and permanently change shorelines. Inland flooding is equally devastating, with rivers and lakes overflowing as torrential rain falls for hours, or even days. The sound is unlike anything else on Earth. The wind doesn't just howl, it screams, a bone-rattling roar, mixed with the violent snapping of trees and the crash of waves battering the coast. In many cases, evacuation is the only option, because staying behind can mean being completely cut off from rescue. After a Category 5 passes, the scene is often apocalyptic. Buildings are flattened to their foundations. Boats are thrown blocks inland. Infrastructure, roads, power, water, is either gone or unusable. Recovery isn't measured in days or weeks, but in months and years. Hurricanes like Dorian, 2019, Maria, 2017, and Irma, 2017, showed the raw, terrifying reality of this level. Entire islands left uninhabitable, death tolls climbing, and survivors left with nothing but wreckage. It's easy to think this is the absolute ceiling of nature's fury, but in rare and theoretical cases, storms could grow even stronger, reaching into levels that science hasn't officially classified yet. Level 8. Level 8 isn't just off the charts, it breaks the chart entirely. Super typhoons, common in the Pacific, already rival Category 5 hurricanes with sustained winds well over 160 miles per hour. But a hypercane is a theoretical monster, an ocean-borne storm so massive and violent it could literally reshape the planet's climate. A hypercane could form under extreme conditions, such as after a massive asteroid impact or a supervolcanic eruption, when sea surface temperatures spike above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius. At that heat, the storm's energy intake would be unlimited. Winds could reach 500 miles per hour, tearing buildings, forests, and even the surface of the ocean into shreds. The storm's vertical reach would pierce the stratosphere, injecting massive amounts of water vapor high into the atmosphere, potentially triggering a chain reaction that could destroy the ozone layer. That means ultraviolet radiation from the sun could pour directly onto the surface, making survival even harder in the aftermath. Even a regular super typhoon like Haiyan in 2013 can cause unimaginable destruction, flattening entire cities, killing thousands, and displacing millions. But a hypercane would be a planetary event, its winds and waves capable of obliterating entire coastlines in a matter of hours, with storm surges potentially hundreds of feet high. It's the kind of storm that turns weather into extinction-level disaster. And while a hypercane has never been observed in recorded history, the physics say it's possible. If we've already passed the point where normal scales apply, what lies at level 9 will push us into a realm where storms defy everything we know about Earth itself. Level 9. If you think Earth's storms are intense, Level 9 takes us far beyond our atmosphere, to worlds where storms make Category 5 hurricanes look like light breezes. On Jupiter, the Great Red Spot has been raging for at least 350 years. This massive anticyclonic storm is so huge that 3 Earths could fit inside it, with winds over 400 miles per hour. And it doesn't just come and go, it's been spinning nonstop for centuries, drawing its energy from the planet's deep, turbulent atmosphere. Then there's Saturn's hexagon, a bizarre 6-sided jet stream at the planet's north pole. The structure itself is thousands of miles wide, with winds exceeding 200 miles per hour, trapping storms inside its shape like a cosmic whirlpool. Neptune holds the record for the fastest winds in the solar system, over 1,300 miles per hour, faster than the speed of sound on Earth. Imagine an invisible hammer smashing through anything in its path, without the friction of solid ground to slow it down. And Mars? Its dust storms can engulf the entire planet for weeks or months, blotting out the sun completely. These storms aren't deadly because of speed. They're dangerous because of their sheer scale, able to choke solar power and strand spacecraft. Level 9 storms remind us that Earth's weather isn't the pinnacle of chaos. It's just one chapter in the universe's storm library. Out there, storms can last for centuries, cover whole planets, or reach speeds we can't physically survive. But even these titans are still bound by nature's rules. At level 10, we enter a realm where storms become something else entirely. Cosmic forces on the edge of science fiction, and maybe reality. Level 10. Level 10 storms exist at the edge of science and nightmare. Events so powerful, they're rarely even called storms. These are cosmic tempests born from the most violent processes in the universe, where energy isn't just destructive, it's apocalyptic. One example is a gamma ray burst. These occur when massive stars collapse into black holes, or when neutron stars collide, releasing more energy in seconds than our sun will produce in its entire 10 billion year life. If one were aimed at Earth from thousands of light years away, the burst could strip our planet's atmosphere and sterilize the surface in an instant. Then there are magnetar flares, eruptions from neutron stars with magnetic fields trillions of times stronger than Earth's. A single flare could release enough radiation to fry electronics on the far side of the galaxy. These are storms of raw magnetism and light warping space itself. And at the very top, there's the hypothetical quasar storm, jets of high-energy plasma launched from the supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxies. These jets can stretch millions of light years, moving at near-light speed, and can bathe entire star systems in deadly radiation. Unlike hurricanes or even planetary storms, Level 10 events don't just reshape landscapes. They rewrite reality for anything caught in their path. They're not survivable, not predictable, and in some cases, not even fully understood by science. At this level, a storm isn't just weather. It's the universe itself showing us how small we really are.